Hi everyone, welcome to Emma Tales. I'm excited to share a new story with you. That summer it felt as if the sun set over our quiet suburban home with a sense of sorrow. Its golden rays stretching into shadows that seemed to echo the growing rift between Alexander and me. I can still feel the warmth of that evening, the tang of lemonade on my tongue, and the rhythmic thump of Jack's tail on the porch. But underneath the serenity something was undeniably wrong. Alexander's laughter, which used to fill the air like a summer breeze, had become an empty whisper. His gaze, once brimming with joy, now searched the horizon as if hunting for answers I couldn't provide. When I reached out to hold his hand, yearning for the comfort I once knew, a chill met my touch, instead of the warmth I longed for. His voice, hesitant and low, shattered the silence. "Sophia, I've been thinking." Those words, soft but heavy, marked the moment when the life we thought was perfect began to crumble. What followed would alter everything, leaving me questioning whether our love could withstand the storm gathering on the horizon. The summer of 1968 was no ordinary season. Our cozy suburban home held not just the fragrance of blooming flowers, but also an unspoken tension that seemed to grow heavier by the day. My name is Sophia, and for 6 years I was married to Alexander, with his rugged charm and a laugh that could brighten the darkest day. He was the love of my life. Our home wasn't just a shelter. It was a haven filled with warmth and the joyous antics of our beloved German Shepherd, Jack, with eyes that seemed to understand every human emotion. Jack wasn't just a cute dog. He was family. Yet I remember the exact moment when a tiny crack appeared in the picture-perfect life we'd built. It was a golden evening, the kind where the setting sun paints everything in warm, honeyed hues. Alexander and I sat on the porch sipping tart lemonade, Jack lying peacefully at our feet, his tail thumping softly against the boards. But Alexander's demeanor was off. His silence stretched too long, his focus distant as he stared out at the fading sunlight. When I reached for his hand, seeking solace, it felt unfamiliar, cold even, and then, breaking the stillness, he said, "Sophia, I've been thinking." His voice, so uncharacteristically hesitant, sent a ripple of dread through me. His words, loaded with foreboding, hinted at something deeper than I was ready to hear. From there our arguments escalated. Little spats about chores turned into heated fights about things we couldn't even articulate. And then came the night. Everything changed. The summer air grew heavier with every passing day, as if it carried the weight of the unspoken tension between us. Alexander and I were no strangers to disagreements, but this felt different. The deeper, sharper, more painful our arguments, once fleeting, now lingered, leaving wounds that no amount of time seemed to heal. It was a Saturday evening when the first real fracture in our relationship became undeniable. Alexander came home late, later than usual, and his explanation felt more like an excuse. I stood in the kitchen, the smell of overcooked dinner hanging in the air, a reflection of my distracted mind. When he walked in, I noticed his shirt was slightly misbuttoned, and there was a faint floral scent clinging to him. Not the flowers from our garden. No, this was something else. Something unfamiliar. My heart sank as I watched him move, his actions too deliberate, his smile too forced. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice steady though my heart raced. "Work," he replied too quickly, his eyes darting away from mine. The seed of doubt was planted, and that night, as we lay in bed, the silence between us spoke louder than any words. I felt the weight of his secrets pressing down on us, smothering the love we once shared. Jack, sensing the shift, rested his head on my lap, his soft brown eyes full of concern. He had always been our loyal companion, the silent witness to our lives. And now it seemed he was the only one who truly understood the depth of our pain. The days that followed were a blur of forced smiles and hollow conversations. Our home, once filled with laughter and warmth, felt like a stage where we performed the roles of husband and wife, reciting lines that no longer held any meaning. The spark that had once ignited our love now flickered weakly like a candle struggling against the wind. One evening the argument began over something trivial, a forgotten chore perhaps, or a missed anniversary. But it quickly spiraled into something much bigger. "You never listen to me anymore, Alexander," I shouted, my voice trembling with frustration. "And you never stop complaining," he retorted, his tone sharp and cutting. The fight ended with Alexander storming off to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the dimly lit living room. I sat there nursing a glass of wine, replaying the argument in my mind. Jack sat by my side, his presence a quiet comfort. Amidst the chaos, I knew I couldn't let things fester, so I mustered the courage to follow Alexander to the bedroom. As I approached, the floorboards creaked under my feet, each step heavier than the last. I hesitated at the door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. When I finally pushed it open, I found Alexander lying in bed, his back turned toward me. "Alexander," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He stirred, but didn't respond. I slipped into bed beside him, the space between us feeling like an unbridgeable chasm. I reached out, my hand trembling, but stopped short, unsure if my touch would be welcomed or resented. Just as I was about to speak, the bedroom door creaked open. Startled, I turned to see Sophia, Alexander's sister, standing in the doorway. "What are you doing here?" I asked, confusion lacing my voice. "I couldn't sleep," she replied softly, her gaze shifting between Alexander and me. "I heard the shouting earlier and wanted to make sure everything was okay." Alexander finally turned to face her, his expression a mixture of annoyance and concern. "It's late, Sophia," he said, his tone firm but gentle. "I know," she murmured, "but I thought I could help." Her presence only added to the tension in the room, and after a few moments of awkward silence, she left, closing the door behind her. The air felt even heavier, now charged with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. The days that followed were no better. Alexander and I continued to drift further apart, our once shared dreams and laughter replaced by a suffocating silence. Even Jack, who had always been a source of joy, seemed subdued, his tail wagging less frequently. Then came the night that shattered what little remained of our fragile connection. Alexander came home even later than usual, his demeanor distant and his answers evasive. As we sat at the dinner table, the tension was unbearable. "Is there someone else?" I finally blurted out, unable to hold back the question that had been gnawing at me. Alexander froze his fork midway to his mouth. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice defensive. "You've been distant, secretive. I need to know the truth, Alexander. I'm tired of this." "Sophia," he said, his voice rising, "you're always accusing me of something." The argument escalated, words flying like daggers, each one cutting deeper than the last. By the end of the night, Alexander had packed a bag and left, slamming the door behind him. I sat alone in the silence, the weight of my actions crashing down on me. Jack sat at my feet, his eyes full of concern, as if he could sense the unraveling of our lives. In the weeks that followed, the house felt emptier than ever. Alexander's absence was a constant reminder of the love we had lost, and every room seemed to echo with memories of happier times. One evening, as I sat in the living room with Jack by my side, the phone rang. It was Alexander. His voice was hesitant, filled with a mix of pain and longing. "Sophia, can we talk?" My heart raced as I agreed to meet him. We chose a small cafe, where we had shared many happy moments during the early days of our relationship. Sitting across from him, the air between us was thick with tension and unspoken words. "I've been thinking a lot." Alexander began, his eyes fixed on his coffee. "About us, about everything that's happened." I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "I've been thinking too. Alexander, I'm so sorry for everything." He looked up, his gaze meeting mine. "I know you are, Sophia, and I miss you. I miss us, but I don't know if I can forget what happened." "I don't expect you to forget," I said softly, my voice trembling, "but I hope you can forgive. I've been working on myself, trying to understand why I acted the way I did." Alexander sighed, his expression softening. "I've been lonely too. Sophia, the house doesn't feel the same without you." We talked for hours, slowly peeling back the layers of pain and regret that had built up between us. It wasn't a reconciliation, not yet, but it was a step in the right direction. Months passed and our conversations became more frequent. We both sought therapy individually and together, and slowly began to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. One chilly autumn day, Alexander invited me back to the house. It felt different, less like a museum of our past, and more like a home. "Once again, I've realized something," Alexander said, as we sat in the living room. "I still love you, Sophia, and I believe with time we can." Healed tears filled my eyes as relief washed over me. I love you too, Alexander, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work. We decided to take things slow, rebuilding our relationship one step at a time. Jack, our loyal companion, was with us every step of the way, his presence a constant reminder of the unconditional love we both sought to emulate. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, we found new ways to strengthen our bond. It wasn't easy, healing never is. But with each passing day, the love that once seemed lost began to flourish once more. That if this story resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us craft more engaging stories for you.